Good day, everyone. I am Marjorie Laureta, your General Mathematics teacher. Today, we will have a new topic. So we will discuss about propositions. At the end of the video lesson, I hope that you will be able to define what propositions are, differentiate between simple and compound propositions, and identify the different types of compound propositions. So, what are propositions? Before we define what propositions are, let us first go back to our elementary English. May we have a review on the different types of sentences. So let's start with declarative sentence. Declarative sentence, a sentence that makes a statement or expresses an opinion. Example, I want to become an engineer. This makes a statement. Another, my brother is good at mathematics. Well, this expresses an opinion. These two are examples of declarative sentences. And I believe you can still remember that when we say declarative sentences, they end with a period. Okay, next, we also have imperative sentences. Imperative sentence, a sentence that gives a command or makes a request. Example, go to your room. Well, this gives a command. Another, please go to your room. And this one makes a request. Just like declarative sentences, imperative sentences also end with a period. Okay. Next, we have interrogative sentences. Interrogative sentence, a sentence that asks a question. Example, when are you going to finish your assignment? So interrogative sentences can easily be identifiable because they end with a question mark. And lastly, we have exclamatory sentences. An exclamatory sentence is a sentence that expresses strong emotions such as happiness, anger, surprise, and excitement. Example, I got a perfect score on my exam. So we can also easily identify whether a sentence is an example of an exclamatory sentence or not because they end with an exclamation mark. Okay, so may we now go back to our original topic, which is proposition. What are propositions? A proposition is a declarative sentence that is either true or false, but not both. Okay, so from the definition of a proposition, we can say that there are two key parts for us to be able to say whether a sentence is an example of a proposition or not. So, first, it should be a declarative sentence. That's the reason why we reviewed about the different types of sentences. And most of the time, propositions are statements. Next, aside from being a declarative sentence, we have another condition for it to become a proposition. So the second condition is that a declarative sentence is either true or false, but not both. Now, this condition is actually very important. It tells us that not all declarative sentences can be considered as a proposition. It means that a sentence must be easily identifiable as true or false. Now, what does it mean exactly when we say a sentence is true or a sentence is false? It simply means that if you say a proposition, we must be sure that what you are saying is a true or considered as entirely true, or what you are saying is considered as entirely false. If we have a doubt about a certain statement being true or being false, then what you got is not a proposition. So that we can familiarize ourselves whether the given sentence is a proposition or not, let us perform these exercises. Okay, so for activity number 1, we will identify if the following is a proposition or not. So number 1, studying hard caused Albert to pass the exam. For number 1, it is an example of a proposition. Why? Because it is a declarative sentence. And it only says that Albert passed the exam. Okay. Number 2, watch out. So for number 2, it is not a proposition. Why? Because it is not a declarative sentence. How about for number 3? How much water do we need? Again, it is not a proposition because it is not an example of a declarative sentence. So for number 4, 5 plus 10 is equal to 11. Well, this is an example of a proposition. Why? We must remember that number sentences are considered as proposition. It conveys only one thought. What thought is it? So we have here, it says that 5 plus 10 is equal to 11. So if we have other number sentences just like 1 plus 3 is equal to 4, 6 plus 7 is equal to 13, well, those are all examples of a proposition. But how about for number 5? For number 5, x plus 3 is equal to 5. Is it an example of a proposition or not a proposition? So for number 5, it is not a proposition. Why? Because it can be true or false depending on the value of x. So it is not always true and it is not always false depending on the value of x. If the value of x in here is 2, then we can say that this sentence is true. But if the value of x is higher than 2 or lower than 2, let's say for example, the value of x is 5, so we will have 5 plus 3, then this sentence now will become false. Okay, we are not so sure, or it is not always the case that this sentence is true, or it is not always the case that this sentence is false. We are not so sure about that. How about for number 6? X plus 3 is equal to 5 when x is equal to 2. So for number 5 and 6, they differ in some ways. That for number 6, we have the value for x. So it says here, the value of x is equal to 2. Or the value of x for number 6 is always 2. Thus, we say that number 6 is an example of a proposition. Why? Because this sentence is always true. Okay, how about for number 7? Your answer is wrong. Do you think your answer is always wrong? No, our answers are sometimes correct. So, we can say that for number 7, it is not a proposition because this sentence is considered as a paradox. Paradox are sentences that sometimes true and sometimes false. Okay, so let's move on. May we now go to the different types of proposition. We have two types of proposition. They are simple propositions and compound propositions. So the first type of proposition is simple propositions. What are simple propositions? Simple propositions, statements that are singular in thought and conveys one thought. Simple propositions do not contain any other propositions as a component part. So it is a single proposition. Okay, it only have one thought. Example, 3 minus 1 is 2. Another, 7 is an even number. The flower is blue and the square root of 4 is 2. Well, for simple propositions, they can be denoted by lowercase letters such as P, Q, R, S, and the likes. Anyways, for logic, P, Q, R, and S are usually used to represent simple propositions. But of course, you can use any letters that you want. But why are we representing simple propositions? Because lowercase letters will make our lives easier. How? So may we have the following examples. So example, let's say we have here the proposition, the product of 8 and 2 is 16. So may we try to represent this proposition as lowercase letter p. If ever they will ask you, can you make a conclusion whether this sentence is true or whether this sentence is false? Then, if that's the case, you can say that the product of 8 and 2 is actually 16 because 8 times 2 is equal to 16. Therefore, the product of 8 and 2 is 16 is a true statement. Diba? Yun yung isusulat natin if they are asking our conclusion. But for us to have a simpler life, we can just write P is true. Another, the sum of 8 and 2 is 11. So 8 plus 2 is 11. Is it true or false? Well, it is false. So if they will ask you to write your conclusion, you can write the sum of 8 and 2 is 11 is false. Or you can just write Q is false. Okay, so may we now go to the second type of proposition, which is compound proposition. Compound propositions, this contains two or more propositions. These propositions are put together using logical operators or connective words such as and, or, if, then, and the likes. So for compound proposition, we can see different connective words. case. First type of a compound proposition is a conjunction. So for conjunction, if two simple propositions, so let's say we have proposition P and proposition Q are connected by the word and, then the resulting compound proposition P and Q is called a conjunction of P and Q and is written in symbolic form as P and Q. So we must remember that when a proposition is a conjunction, then we can see the word and the symbol and. Ganito siya. The symbol, we will have this one. Example. Form the conjunction of the following simple propositions. So we have here two simple propositions. Proposition P, which is Jethro is a boy. And proposition Q, he is a grade 5 pupil. So we will combine proposition Q and P by the connective word and. So we will now have, in symbol, we have P and Q. Pwedeng ito na lang yung isulat natin. But in words, we have Jethro is a boy and he is a grade 5 pupil. Okay, next type of a compound proposition is disjunction. If two simple propositions P and Q are connected by the word or, then the resulting compound propositions P or Q is called the disjunction of P and Q and is written in symbolic form as P or Q. So for disjunction, we have the connective word or and the symbol or, this one. Okay, example. Form the disjunction of the following simple propositions. So proposition P, Joyce will pass all her subjects. Proposition Q, she will be retained. In symbols, we can write the disjunction P or Q. While for words, we can write Joyce will pass all her exams or she will be retained. So we have here the connective word or. Okay, let's move on. So the third type of compound proposition is conditional or implication. So if two simple propositions P and Q are joined by a connectivity, if then, so we have if then the resulting compound proposition if P then Q is called a conditional proposition or an implication and is written in symbolic form as P. We have a line with single arrowhead Q. So in here, for conditional or implication, we have P or the first simple proposition as the hypothesis or antecedent, while the second simple proposition or Q is called your conclusion or consequent. Okay, so we have here example. Number 1, if Jonathan is in grade 11, then he is a senior high school student. So our hypothesis in here is if Jonathan is in grade 11. Our conclusion is he is a senior high school student. Okay, another. If Ariel work hard, then he will be successful. So our hypothesis in here is if Ariel work hard. Our conclusion is that he will be successful. Okay, next. By conditional or by implication. If two propositions P and Q are connected by the word or by the connective if and only if. So for kanina, for conditional or implication, we have if, then. Then while for biconditional, we have if and only if. Then the resulting compound proposition P, if and only if Q, is called the biconditional P and Q and is written in symbolic form P, then double arrowhead Q. The proposition may also be written as P, IFF, Q. Then the proposition P and Q are the components of the biconditional. So we have here an example. You can take the flight if and only if you buy a ticket. So we have here the connective word if and only if. Another. Two sides of a triangle are congruent if and only if two angles opposite them are congruent. Okay, and the last type of compound proposition is negation. Okay, negation, an assertion that a statement fails or denial of a statement is called the negation of the statement. The negation of a statement is generally formed by introducing the word not at some proper place in the statement or by prefixing the statement with it is not the case that or it is false that. So we can use negative words such as not or praise it is not the case that or it is false that. So the negation of a statement P in symbolic form is written by negation P. Okay. Madali lamang natin siyang matatandaan because we have here the word nega. So our clue is nega. Nega siya. So negative. Not. Example. Write the negation of the following statement. School year 2020 to 2021 will start on June 1. Ano lamang yung ilalagay natin? We will use the word not or the statement, it is not the case that or it is false that. So we can use any of those. Okay. So we will have the negation of P. So this is the symbol for negation. So we have negation of P. Then, school year 2020-2021 will not start on June 1. So we have here the connective word not or negation P. It is not the case that the school year 2020-2021 will start on June 1. Okay, so we have it is not the case that or it is false that the school year 2020-2021 will start on June 1. So, dinedeny niya yung original statement. Ginagawa niyang failure yung first statement. Okay, so may we have a review on the different types of compound propositions. So, we have here negation. So, we can use not or it is not the case that or it is false that. Okay, so the symbol of negation is this one. We also have here conjunction. So for conjunction, we have and the symbol is this one. The third one is disjunction. So for disjunction, we have the connective word or. And our symbol is this one. We also have here conditional. So for conditional, we have hypothesis and conclusion. Hypothesis is if, conclusion is then. Okay, so the symbol is this one, single arrowhead. And for other books, they are using this one. And lastly, we also have biconditional. So for biconditional, we have if and only if. The symbol used for biconditional is a line with double arrowhead. Okay, so I think for us to be able to understand further our lesson, may we have the following exercises. Okay, so activity number 2, convert each compound proposition into symbols. So from compound proposition, ilalagay lamang natin yung symbols. All we need to do is to memorize the different symbols used for the different types of compound propositions. Okay, so may we have number 1. Or we have here two propositions, proposition P and proposition Q. Proposition P, Facebook is a source of information. For proposition Q, social media spread fake news. Okay. Letter A. Facebook is a source of information and social media spread fake news. What type of compound proposition uses the connective word and? Correct. It is conjunction. So we will have the symbol P and Q. Okay. May we now go to letter B. Facebook is not a source of information or social media do not spread fake news. So we use the connective word or. What compound proposition uses the connective word or? Correct. It is disjunction. So we will have the symbol P, disjunction Q. But we also have here the keyword not. So ginawa niyang negative yung proposition P and ginawa rin niyang negative yung proposition Q. So naging Facebook is not a source of information. We also have here social media do not spread fake news. So in symbol, we have negation of P, disjunction of the negation of Q. Okay. Now, letter C. It is not the case that. So for it is not the case that, ginawa na niyang negative. So it is negation. That social media spread fake news and is a conjunction. Facebook is a source of information. Okay? So for letter P, ginawa niyang negative. So we will have the symbol for negation. While for letter Q, it remained the same. And we have here the connective word and. So in symbol, we have the negation of Q, conjunction P. Okay, for letter D, if, so we have hypothesis, Facebook is a source of information, then, so we have conclusion, social media spread fake news. So this is an example of a conditional or implication. Okay? So we have here in symbol P, then single arrowhead Q. And lastly, for letter E, social media spread fake news if and only if Facebook is a source of information. So, ano yung inunan niya rito? So, we have social media spread fake news. Social media spread fake news is proposition Q. If and only if is a connective word for by conditional. So we will have double arrowhead. So remember, inunan niya yung proposition Q, kaya uunahin rin natin isulat yung proposition Q and then P. Okay. Next. Baliktarin naman natin yung situation. For now, symbols are given and we will try to identify the statement in words. So we have here two propositions. Proposition P, television network remains shut down. And for proposition Q, the network paid their taxes. Okay, let's move on. For letter A, we have P and this symbol and then Q. What is this? This is disjunction. So we will have P. Proposition P. Television network remains shut down. Siya yung inuna nating sinulat. And then, disjunction. So the connective word for disjunction is or. And then Q. The network paid their taxes. So the network paid their taxes. Okay, next. Letter B. Negation of Q. Then, conjunction P. So, una natin gagawin ay gagawin natin negative or in denial yung proposition Q. So, we will have the network did not pay their taxes. Okay? Conjunction. And proposition P. Television network remains shut down. A. Letter C. P. Conditional Q. What is the connective word used for conditional? We have if and then. So we will have if P, then Q. So if television network remains shut down, then the network paid their taxes. How about for letter D? Negation, then P, then conjunction Q. Yan. So, in here, we have here parenthesis. It says that the sentence refers to both the propositions. So we will have, it is not the case that television networks, or it is not the case that the television network remains shut down, and Q, the network paid their taxes. How about for letter D? So, parang letter E lang din, it is not the case that Q, the network paid their taxes, or P, television network remains shut down. Okay, so that's all for today. I hope you learned something. Good day, everyone.